We live. We live. We have an action-packed seed talk stuff to make your seeds walk today. We're gonna be talking. We're gonna be talking about several things. I think we should get pop and talk about the Monique situation first. Let's get some people in the room and whatnot, and then we're gonna talk about the situation with the former football player. I can't pronounce the brother's first name. I'm gonna try to practice it maybe after y'all say it a couple times, and we'll talk about him being acquitted of murder from this Tinder date that went tragic. He showed up thinking that the person on the other end of the Tinder profile was Angie and a woman, but it wasn't. I don't know the name of the person who passed, but they ended up getting into it, got into a fight and whatnot, and he said he feared for his life. And after they got in a scuffle, he found out that it was a man, not a woman, and was going underneath the mattress, and then decided to punch him, I think 5 times, and then kick him and to flee the scene. And that resulted in that person being deceased. So we want to talk about that and that acquittal and whatnot, and what we can do as a community to prevent that kind of stuff from happening. And I want to talk about this Monique thing. I want to talk about it. Is Monique to blame? You know, I mean, is there a pattern now? Is there a distinct pattern? You know, or her, just her ability to lash out on people. I mean, she doesn't have to validate any of her feelings, towards anybody. She definitely has a right, what I'm saying, and the freedom to be upset and talk her stuff. But at what point, do we say you're part of the problem and not the solution? You're escalating and not de-escalating. And then what do we do when we have people like Monique in our community and we're dealing with people like that? Do you even respond? If you're DL Hewley, do you respond to Monique? I'm throwing stuff out there while we're tagging people.
Yeah, y'all got to tag people. I'm holding my iPad up. Come in my bedroom, so I can't just play my phone. So I mean, I could, but how you deal with people, Monique? Well, D.O. did what I thought was the appropriate way to respond. I think he defended himself about what had happened. He posted his own personal receipts, and it seemed like he wasn't lying either. And of course, he went on to say, okay, I know what Oprah went through. I know what Lee Daniels went through, what Tyler Perry went through, or Steve Harvey, etc. And of course, he called her, you went from the queens of comedy to the queens of ashes because you burned everything around you, or something of that notion. What I will say about that particular comment, why he's right to feel how he feels. I'm not gonna say he's wrong for feeling what he feels, but in order for her to seem like she had a pattern, she would have to be wrong back then. Which back this seemed to me, looking at her, shoot. That's the thing about being in the pot. Okay, I'm back again. Sorry. But back to what I was saying. For those instances, I don't think she was in the wrong ass, because Lee Daniels had her overdoing some work for the movie Precious that she was getting paid for. I think that's one of the issues with that. I'm not sure what the deal with Tyler Perry was. I guess it was in the same mix, but Tyler Perry seemed to me, all of them, with the exception of Lee Daniels that came out recently, wanted to extend the olive branch to Monique, actually had some sort of humility and try to patch things up with Monique, but I guess Monique wasn't trying to have it. I'm not sure exactly what she wanted from Tyler Perry, but yeah, that didn't work. Well, Oprah, because the reason why I know because Monique did an interview with this young cat on YouTube, and she kind of told the whole story. And of course, with Oprah, the beef with her was she brought her family on without her permission to talk about her molestation from her brother. She had her parents and her brother on. I'm not sure if anyone seen that episode. It was like in the early 2010s. I was in college when they aired. I don't even think it's on YouTube anymore. I think they pulled it off. But that was a very messy situation there. So she always had beef with Oprah in that notion. So it's kind of like we could say she has a pattern, but looking at those particular situations, I could see why she would feel the way she feel. It's just this particular situation. I don't think she's wrong for feeling how she feels, because apparently she signed a particular contract that said one thing, and she gets there and apparently it's something totally different. The only thing I disagree with that is that she shouldn't have to rent out the people who are there to be entertained by her. She should rent to people behind the stage, because that's technically who she should have been renting at. Because as I said, behind stage, I'll be feeling some kind of way. I'm sitting here for a comedy show and she having a rant talking about somebody. I'll be like, damn, what we do? How we got caught up in this mess? So I don't know if I would say she's a problematic. She could be. I think it's one of the situations. Two things can be true. She could be a problematic person, but someone did try to play her, and that's why she's a problem.
Well, I would say I can understand why someone could say I could see it, her being part of the problem, not the solution, because she went after DL, called the man out of his name, called him a bitch, and was expecting him to be some kind of ally and accomplice as a fellow comedian to, like, what, let her go first or whatever. It's like, so you got two people trapped in between two separate contracts. And just because someone doesn't come to your aid or become an ally or an accomplice how you see fit, I don't see how it's warranted or appropriate to call them a bitch for so many different reasons. I just think it's very clumsy, like I said offline, to be about gender equality and this, that, and the third. But when someone's not taking care of their business, if they're not being trustworthy, if they're not being a good friend, if they're being dishonest, you felt like they did you wrong, why would you align that with being a bitch and not just an untrustworthy person or not being a good friend? It's just like aligning something with a female dog, which is aligning something with, in colloquial terms, a woman. Why would you align him with acting like a woman for not having your back? So you're aligning all these untrustworthy negative things with being a female or a quote woman. I just don't feel like that fits into her gender equality social package at all. It's just like if someone's being weak, me calling them, you know what I'm saying, a sexual organ, calling them a coochie or something. Like, oh, you're being weak. You acting like a coochie. Like, you're acting weak. You acting like a bitch. Like that's like a no-brainer. Like, I thought for sure you're not supposed to do that if you have a social justice, gender equality framework that you're supposed to be standing firm on.
Yeah, and then I think she went on to talk about his wife and the dog. He's like, damn, what my wife and dog got to do with it? I should have laughed at that. I should have laughed, but I did. I didn't even know she did say something about his wife and dog, because they were bleeping out a whole lot in the video, so I couldn't make out exactly what she was saying. But yeah, I was like, yeah, I wouldn't have said all that.
I mean, we have two women on C-Time. I just want y'all to to tap in on that. Is it okay if you're a woman to call a man a bitch if you think he's acting weak? Is that cool? Is that okay? Like,
I think it's based on the language that the person understands. So I would say if the person that's receiving the insult, because I've heard like a pair of balls, like you're weak like a pair of balls, because there was some female comedian that said that balls drop versus you kick someone there, they're going to drop, versus kicking a woman, we're not going to drop. So that's being weak. I think a joke like that or something would have gone completely over his head. So yeah, unfortunately, that's the insult that we use with one another, as well as the insult that you use with men, like being like a little bee.
Well, here's another question I would ask. If she wasn't calling him any kind of name, but she's talking about, I don't trust him, he's untrustworthy, he tried to play me out my contract. Let's say she's still going on a rant, but she didn't call him no name. She's talking about his character. Would she still be in the wrong then? Or would we still call her wrong then? Technically, she still would be, because you explain this to an audience who's there to see you entertain. But if she didn't talk about his family or dog or whatnot, and she talked about how shady of a person he is, would we still call her problematic?
I think people will call her problematic regardless. I mean, I could pretty much, if you know someone's ideology, you I could pretty much guess that they don't like her. And so this fits the narrative of, okay, this is another reason to pile on and not like her. The same thing for people that I know that don't like DL. This is a reason to pile on. I think they both come out looking bad. They both look like losers. But this was set up for them to both look this way, because this is unfortunately how contracts in the entertainment industry are written to. It would be like, back when Prince was having contractual problems, he was smart enough not to go on the stage and instead of playing to complain to his entire audience that I'm like a slave to this recording contract, versus her with this contract. I mean, I don't want to say this is like her language that she uses. I'm not going to insult her intelligence. Her way of navigating the world is what some people would, the slur like either ignorant or ratchet or whatever. That's how she communicates.
It sounds like you're giving her a lot of passes right now, Doc. You're giving her a lot of passes.
I am, because I think people are giving DL a lot of passes too. So I'm like, I'll give passes to both. I think they were both screwed by this contract. She had a signed contract. He had a memo, which wasn't signed by all parties. So I think for her, what she should have done is refuse to go on, because I know with entertainers how they battle with who's last and who, So if she really felt that way, she should have said, okay, I'm not going on, and then taken the risk. So, well, she wouldn't be paid, but is this worth the professional hit to her reputation? So she should have thought that out better, versus going out and just bitching and complaining about him, because like I said, the people didn't pay for a bitch session from her.
So she didn't even. Okay. Out here, there it goes again. All right.
I know. I said after it went out my mouth, it went.
Oh well, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is until you make it something else. But listen.
Oh gosh.
So those who checked out her whole performance, because it was a performance, did she actually tell any jokes? Was she funny, or?
I don't know.
I just heard the clip when she was going off calling them a bitch. Did she tell any jokes? Anyone out there know? Did she tell any jokes?
I didn't
I have no idea.
hear the joke parts. I think her ego was so hit that I don't think she was capable of doing her act, because she was, when you have that blinding rage about something. So she went with the blinding rage versus actually doing her act. I mean, I couldn't tell if she had planned jokes or anything, because she was talking so long about that.
Does anyone know? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Logic.
Does anyone know when Monique's last special was, or the last time she got on stage and told some jokes and was actually funny?
One said a couple years ago. I remember somebody said she had a comedy. They were 2-3 years ago.
I mean, I really
Parker's episode.
I really do. No, I'm not talking about any scripted.
I love the Parkers. I don't care what anybody says.
I really do appreciate and value. I really do appreciate and value Monique's scripted performances. I think they're dope. She has the accolades to prove it. She's dope at that. I feel the same way about Mike Epps as I do with Monique. I think that he's better scripted, and he probably should stay as far away as a stand-up comedian stage as possible to preserve his career. I mean, for real, Mike Epps, his stand-up really isn't that good. I feel the same way about Faison. I went to go see Faison once.
That's a hater.
Yeah, he does similar stuff like Monique. He does similar stuff like Monique. But I went to go see him, and he just started cracking on people in the audience, and it wasn't really funny. And actually, the funniest thing I think he said is when I want people to stop coming up to me and say I look like Precious. Speaking of Monique, that was probably the funniest thing he said that night. And then he started talking about people in the crowd, and I was like, never again. But I'll go see Faison in a movie. I'll watch Faison on a DJ on a Vlad TV interview. He's funny. But at some point, I feel Monique, as a fellow stand-up comedian, you got to go out there and you got to be funny. You got to tell some jokes to make sure that anyone that you want to invest in you is making a good investment. And whether she agrees it or not, when you're asking other people for money, no, scratch that. When you're demanding people for money in a crass capitalist consumer, you know what I'm saying, economy, and you want to get something from a venture capitalist, you have to show them that they're making an investment. Whether you think all these other comedians are funny or not, Dave Chappelle, all the other contracts that Netflix has given, you have to prove to them that you're worthy of their investment. The Chris Rocks, you know what I'm saying? And I laughed at their specials. I want to laugh at Monique, but she won't give me the opportunity to. She'll go on the Breakfast Club and she'll call Charlemagne the God. She'll call him Leonard. That was funny. That was funny.
But her outburst on Charlemagne was really similar to this, and that somebody insulted her ego. And then when her ego was insulted, she had to make it not about the facts of the situation, but about some sort of sociological weakness in this person's philosophy. So now Charlemagne is not allowed to disagree with her because her dispute was, in her mind, racially based. Now, Netflix disagrees with that, and a lot of people disagree with that. But for her, it was racial. So if you disagree with her, then you're a coon. And she did the same thing with DL. She didn't like that DL didn't want to go on stage, before open for her. So that means that he doesn't support Black women. And that's the type of character like assassination that I think is really inappropriate when factually people are allowed to disagree with you.
Well, I also think for her, when you're saying that she was focusing on the racial aspect, I think for her, she focuses on race and sex. And because there aren't a lot of Black female comedians, she probably feels attacked by, like, even, when you were mentioning comics, all the comics you mentioned were Black males. I personally think Samore's funnier than Monique. I've never understood why Monique's more popular as a stand-up comedian. And she was also on, I believe, on the same bill. And I was like, she should have gone last because she's funnier than the two of them together. But because of the fact that she's a Black woman in that industry, I think she sees everything as, oh, they're doing this to me because I'm a Black woman. And I won't say obviously, she's probably had a more difficult time breaking into comedy because there's so few Black women, but she sees everything under that lens.
I don't disagree with your analysis on that at all. I think that's where you almost, though, are obligated intellectually to circle back to Logic's point, which is how do you get to both use the insults that you do, but then hold the position that all these things are more than just a threshold disagreement. And then your response to that was that that's the language that she uses. I also understand that. I think this might be, 2 or 3 things are true at once. But for me, that pattern is tough. So, to answer Precious' question from earlier, would she be wrong? No, I don't think she would be wrong. If she got up there and just talked about a factual dispute and left out all of the language that in our community is defamation, even if white people could care less about whether we call each other coons, because that's what matters to me is the public display for the rest of the world on our internal politics. That's what I don't like. But the rest of it is like, hey, people have contract dispute all the time. White people do that. White people will get on TV and talk about, I got screwed over. So, of course, we should be allowed to do that too. But the internal politics thing, I think it's a bad look and it's unnecessary, especially when in the end, we're going to come back and say, oh, wow, you guys were played against each other. It's just a terrible look.
Yeah. I'm going to say this, though. I want to add this, though, because the question is Monique part of the problem or the solution? I don't think she's either one of them. But I have to think about somebody who isn't being mentioned, Daddy. AKA her husband, because if I'm not mistaken, is that not her manager? He should have been on top of that game and make sure the T's been crossing the I's are dot. So I'm not sure she's the problem solution. I don't think she's the one, but I'm pretty sure Daddy is.
Yeah. Point of clarification: the reason why I mentioned those men comments that I mentioned, like Mike Epps and Faison, was to show that I just don't think they're very funny.
Okay.
Then that's not their strengths.
Yeah, just like it was clear that I was making the comparison between them and Monique, saying I like their scripted work more than their stand-up work. And
But
just
you're
like
also listing, because you had mentioned Chappelle, and I thought you were talking about, and he's definitely funny. That's what I meant. The other examples of
I
comedians that
definitely
you.
laugh. And he's given me many opportunities to laugh at him. And I'm saying Monique has not given me the opportunity to laugh. Now I'm not trying to tell her how to chase her pockets in this capitalist economy. I'm not trying to tell her how to work her business. What I would have liked to see when Netflix turned her down as another comic, all right, that's fine. You don't want me? I'm gonna go make my own special. And I'm gonna cut out the middle person, and I'm gonna make my own money to show people I'm really funny, to build my investment, to build my value. Now you come see me on some Chance the Rapper type stuff. I'm not going through no record label. I'm gonna have y'all fighting over. I'm gonna have Netflix, Tubi, you know what I'm saying, Hulu, all fighting over me. Why? Because I'm funny. I'm an investment. And I don't think that's unfair to ask a comment to say, stop asking these people for your stuff, especially as a Black person. Do your own stuff, show you can do it, prove you're funny, and have them come to you and pay you.
I agree. Actually, I can't say that while I tell that when she had that Netflix. I gotta say, Monique, you're a big name. Actually, you're a very popular name. You can actually pull some revenue. Actually, you may have to start small and build yourself up. I've always said that. I'm like, Monique, you actually got a little pull that you could pull this off. But I still say, I think that so-called daddy manager of hers is not playing that game in her favor.
Maybe so. I don't know.
She's not for everyone. Not every comic is for everyone. Just because like we don't find her particularly funny, there's a demographic. Like I have friends that find her hilarious, and they'll even go through that whole joke that she does about skinny women and big women. So there's a demographic that likes her, that thinks she's funny. Just because I don't think everything she's not. Just like every comedian isn't for everyone. She's for a demographic. So she just needs to make sure that she's not attacking another demographic when she's hurt or feels like, she's being attacked. Because like I said, she's Black, she's a woman, she's a dark-skinned, larger woman too. So there's a whole different demographic that maybe finds some of her jokes funny. So it's not that she has to change her act to be funnier to everyone. But she does need to navigate differently when she's working through contract disputes or otherwise she just needs to perform by herself if she thinks, that, hey, problem solved, just perform by yourself.
Yeah, I'm not saying she needs to change her act for Logic's.
I don't think she changed it all.
Humor. But what I'm saying is I would caution her. I would say just be careful as a consumer, as a fellow comedian. She's being funny now for the wrong reasons, I think, right? So the last time before this, you feel me, I thought she was funny just in the irony and the respectability politics that she was playing with Black women wearing bonnets in public. I thought that was funny. I don't think she was trying to be like funny like that, but it was funny because it sounded so clumsy. It sounded so lazy. It was like, really? Is that what we're doing now? Like, again, like calling a man a bitch to align him with something that's weak and untrustworthy. I think that's a step back in your gender equality, social justice framework when you use respectability politics to, just criticize Black women for wearing bonnets in public. It's kind of messed up. I'm just saying it is. You're kind of profiling them. It is. And I think it was funny when she went on to talk about Bobby's point, when she went on The Breakfast Club and started calling Charlemagne Leonard. Why? No, let's be clear though. Let's do a point of clarification. She went on there and bashed Leonard because he gave her Donkey of the Day. Now, he went on there and started saying, now, would you call your mother? Would you call your auntie? Would you call your grandmother a donkey? Then Leonard, why would you got to be ashamed of yourself. But Monique, you make fun of people all the time. That's your job. The irony and the clumsiness in your comments and your critique and your commentary is what's making you funny now. It's like That's your job. You make fun of people all the time. Now, when someone calls you donkey of the day because they don't agree with your stance, now they should be shamed. I
mean, donkey. The best part about donkey of the day is it's usually awarded to somebody who has no self-awareness in a particular moment. Like that's usually what gets you that award, and that's why for Charlemagne it made perfect sense to award it, and she disagreed, and then he got attacked for it. So I think.
Lenard.
Yeah. But meanwhile, we got people like Shantae, Waynans killing the game. We got Wanda Sykes, that's my favorite. That's my favorite. Wanda Sykes, me and my mom went to her last time she was in town. She's dope. And I'm just concerned that we have so many talented. Still got Aisha Taylor in the back, still making her moves, doing her thing. My concern is this one Nigerian sister. She does her thing out of England. I like her work. It's like you're wasting time. Well, maybe she's not wasting time. Maybe she has a plan. I just saying your point is to get on stage and be funny. And I just, I want her to give me opportunities to laugh because I think that she's funny, but I don't want her to be funny, for just like being seen as a problem starter, and not a solution-driven person. So I don't know. I don't know if she's a part of the problem or the solution because she does bring up some things that do have merit when it comes to gender and race, and different kind of politics. But I don't know if she's a part of the problem or the solution, but she definitely escalates the situation real quick. She will escalate the situation real quick. Any last thoughts on that whole situation?
I wish both DL and Monique the best of luck. I hope they both. That's all I can wish for them. I wish them both. I love both of them. So I wish them both well. I just hope they work that. I still think the promoters still instigate that shit. I personally just think that's really what it is. I think they were being messy. That's all I think it is.
What do y'all think about DL's clapback? Do you think he should have responded? Do you think he added to the problem? You think he escalated it more? Like, we're going to have people in our community, that do this, like attack us, and we feel like it's unwarranted. I have it happen quite a bit, many times, as an educator. People come to my office all the time, call me out of my name and all that. And I have to be like, man, how do I respond? Do I want to clap back? Do I want to applaud? Is it even worth it to even give them, the justification or the reaction they want? But then at the same time, a calm person around a toxic person can actually escalate the situation. So it's kind of a chess game. You know what I'm saying? What do you do when someone attacks you? Y'all think that DL clapped back the right way? Was that an appropriate response?
So I think like these people in their profession matters. I think the venue in which the comments are made matter. So if the comments would have stayed on stage exclusively, I don't think that he needs to respond to that. But as soon as they become public and we start using social media, there's this whole thing of narrative control. And so if you don't tell your story, the other person tells the story and they control the narrative. And when you're a public figure, the last thing you need to do is allow somebody else to spin the web. Also, comedians are like rappers. You're engaged in a competitive sport. I don't know that you're allowed, especially when your position was, I won't go up before them, to allow this person to essentially roast you. I think that if you want to hold the position that you're better and you deserve not to open for somebody like that, regardless of whether it's true, I think you almost have to show yourself as being clever or equally clever. So I don't know that he's able to resist that, one, because of his ego, which was large enough that he refused to go up before her in the first place. And secondly, just because, like I was saying, the way in which getting the story out first demands a response. So I think he owed it to himself to protect his reputation and at least get his version of the facts out.
Philip Stowers says, if you are the center of a lot of mess, eventually you have to look at yourself. Let's think about that situation. Let's think about that comment real quick. Now, she's the center of it, and then she has like these people orbiting around her. So, but you don't really hear Oprah talk about the criticism that I haven't heard any that Monique gives her. I haven't heard anything from Tyler Perry. I haven't heard anything from the other brother. They haven't responded. What's his name?
Lee Daniels.
Lee Daniels. Have anyone heard any of those three people say anything in response?
No.
Well, Monique, no. So maybe that's what you do. You don't respond, and that's a good way to tell a person look like a problem, even if they're not. Maybe she's not the problem. Maybe she did. Maybe she's right about everything that she said. Feel me? You know what I mean? But the way you make the other person look like the problem, you just sit back and say, see, there they go again. Oh, so Philip said Lee Daniels did apologize.
He did, and that was like what, last year? It was recently.
Mhm.
He did brought her to the state to apologize. How, I guess, whatever issues they had going on, he did brought her to the state to apologize. I'm not sure what made him want to do that. I'm not sure did Monique wear him down, say fuck it, I'm just gonna give in.
Because 50 Cent jumped in, remember? 50 Cent jumped in and said that, yeah.
Now,
so that's why.
I don't think Monique want no issue with petty ass 50, because you know that motherfucker there.
Well, he stood up
50.
for her, which was
Yeah,
a
he did.
strange thing. Him,
Yeah.
of all people, standing up for a black woman. So it was interesting that he had intervened.
It was very interesting.
Let me ask you a question real quick. When we working in this white male dominated, you know what I'm saying, economic infrastructure, right? Where they got us signing these contracts and stuff like that. And sometimes, too many times, what will happen is that we will be pitted against another black person, whether it's a position that is given to us and another black person is passed up who might be just as qualified or more qualified than us, or we might be in a situation where they give us more money than they give this other black person, when you know that we both, you know what I'm saying, have earned or deserves that pay or whatnot. Are we obligated once we get more money to be like, oh man, let me compensate for you not getting what you're worth? As a fellow black person, let me give you a little bit of my share that I got. Are we obligated to be an accomplice, or what they might say a co-conspirator, you know what I'm saying, for social change, to actually give up a position when we know, like, a person like, say, Monique is a more talented, you know, comic like she is. We're not even gonna say, like, you know, let's just say she is. I mean, she just is. She's better than me. If I get a spot and over her, am I obligated to say, you know, I'm going to go ahead and, you know, I'm going to go ahead and punt this one to Monique? Is that what I'm obligated to do? You know what I'm saying? To really respect, you know, certain social justice principles? Because I think about how much stuff people talk about Ice Cube and F. Gary Gray, mainly Ice Cube, because they didn't get paid for Friday. So is he obligated to go back after he didn't know that Friday was going to hit so big and make so much money as one of the biggest grossing independent black movies in history? Is he obligated to go back and pay Chris Tucker?
So he doesn't want to exploit another. He wants to replicate the system. He wants to be a white man and do the exact same thing to another person. I'm confused.
No, I'm just saying, if you're in that situation, say you do an independent film, and you didn't know what's going to blow up, you know, you put $1 million in it, it grosses 20 million, and you pay people, you know what I'm saying, what they signed up for at the time. That's another thing. This is what your lawyers consulted with you. This is what your financial, you know what I'm saying, advisor says. This is what you can afford. And then these people agreed to that price. And then the movie blows up. Are you obligated to go back and say, hey, man, you know, I know a good reference on your resume is not good enough. Let me give you, you know, extra 500, you know what I'm saying, racks.
I mean, I'm not obligated, but I would feel compelled to give them a bonus or something if I'm making that much more, exponentially more, like the difference between $1 million and 50 million or something. I would give them more. I'm not obligated, but I would feel that that's the right thing to do, and I would do it.
Or you provide the opportunities to get that type of money. Like put them on a different project so they can generate more money or gain more money. You're not
that's the reason why I said they ain't trying to take the reference on the resume. They're not trying to take that. They want the money. And I'm like, how far does it go before you say no, but you signed a contract? Stop trying to like shame me out of more money. Like how far does it go where they trying to check your pockets and trying to figure out how much you made when you know you got certain expenses? Like, because you're gonna get people doing that every single time. But this is after they signed a contract. What good are contracts then?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. But yeah, they technically you're not under no obligation. Excuse me, but I say in those type of instances, like the Ice Cube, they could have put them in a give them an opportunity to have a contract on a different project or whatever. Because with the movie Friday, a lot of them didn't get to come back for the second, third one. And they always felt like they got pushed to the side. So I just say, if I say put them on give them another opportunity, but hey, technically no, they're under no obligation. Especially if they sign a contract. You're right. Once you sign a contract, that's basically what that is. Unless there's like a clause in the contract that's a room for negotiation after a particular success. But most of the time they don't have that clause. So.
Hey, Tiffany made a good point. That's a code right
if
there.
If you use his money and took the risk and lost, would they have given back his money back? And that's another thing. And probably not.
I mean, it goes both ways, man. I put you in this movie. And I lost money, man. Y'all owe me. So you obligated because you went and this man paid you above what you were worth because he respected you and you say, and he paid you above what you're worth, and the movie tanks and he goes in debt. Is that person like, is that the social justice, principles kick in?
Like, however, was he banking on the actors to bring in their money to make it though?
No. That's why what you did, F. Gary Gray did with that movie was so phenomenal because he broke so many actors and actresses or actors, my bad, with that movie. They were pretty much, you know what? I would make the argument, and a lot of people will make the argument, Chris Tucker doesn't get the franchise with Jackie Chan without Friday.
Rush Hour?
Yes. A lot of people agree with me.
We'll never know.
Like, what you trying to say? So what if for Friday he would have got into Rush Hour?
Oh man, don't do that, man. There's no way.
I'm just okay. So two things. One, so if you and I contract and I say I'll pay you to do something for the next 7 days, and you say my rate is X and I pay it. And then you come back in day 8 and say, but I didn't know you were going to sell the object of my labor for triple the price. Most people, at the moment that the 7th day is completed, are like, I'm done with contract number 1. There's almost nobody who on day 8 is going to say, I'm going to honor your request for a modification when I get nothing new. And that's the reason why, in terms of the law, not in terms of ethics or anything like that, that's the reason why, in terms of the law, there's just nothing that can be done. Because what am I getting after the fact that's new? You're asking for something new. You're requesting new funds that I did not release to you originally for the same work you already completed that I already paid you for. That precedent is terrifying. Because while it makes sense when you win, it's a never-ending question of, well, when is the cutoff? When is the cutoff? How many days after our first deal do you get to ask to modify our original deal when it's been completed? 1 week? 2 weeks? What if the movie's not released for a year? What if you complete 6 months of filming and 3 years later the movie gets out of development hell and then you go, oh my God, it was a smashing success. I want more money for the work I completed 4 years ago. That sounds outrageous. That sounds completely outrageous. And if you took it outside of the scope of making $50 million extra dollars, right, it would sound like theft. But like Trisha said, if you had the money in your pocket and you didn't need it and you wanted to be gracious, then I suppose that would be the right thing to do for you on a personal level. But if you start talking about making this a practice, like I said, it seems like you're endorsing people manipulating you after the fact, because they can always say that it was better than you thought it would be, or whatever. You can even have somebody come back and say, I know you lost money on it, but I really think after I watched this performance that it was worth more. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it just brings up an interesting, community building piece. When we're working with people, like, if you can't read a contract, you don't understand a contract, is it reasonable to hold that against a person if they don't have any like contractual, competence? They don't have a lawyer, like it's an interesting thing, because you want to protect yourself, but at the same time, there's only so much responsibility that you have to to protect someone else.
This is really sad because, I mean, just as someone who's a descendant of people that were really screwed out of money based on contracts for songs and artistic work that they created in the 50s and 60s, it's like nothing's changed. I mean, like literally nothing's changed, even in terms of the contracts. And even when they would try later on to sue, saying that, they presented this contract to me fraudulently, I had no idea, they still got nothing, zero, which is how so many other artists were able to literally take their works and use the exact same work and make millions of dollars, versus them that's in some cases like $500, $50 for songs that other people later recorded, and like nothing's, and we think that we're so much further. Well, that was a long time ago. Things haven't changed at all.
So you think that the situation or the example that I gave with with the Friday is similar to people actually stealing people's rights and masters to their music?
I think that it sounds like we are justifying doing what was done to us for so long, that we're doing those same things and we have reasons for it, but we're still doing the same thing. We haven't come as far as we thought. And maybe, I don't want to say maybe for some people, civil rights is the ability to behave like our oppressors did, versus doing the right thing for all of us collectively. And that requires, then that's not a legal thing. That's more of an ethics, moral, thinking about what we're doing to others in our community.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think I definitely agree with that. That's one way to look at it. I definitely agree with that. I think that's a different situation than a movie, than giving a person the opportunity to own the rights to a project that they did by themselves. Like if Logic Got Men does an album for Universal Records, that's different than Logic working with an ensemble of actors. That's a whole different thing. Actors can still get royalties, from that movie. But if I play in a role with Bobby, Trisha, and Precious, that's different than me making an album by myself and someone ripping me off for everything that I made. And I did all the artistic, contributions. I recorded everything. I wrote all the lyrics. That's not what Chris Tucker did. He didn't write the script. He didn't direct it. He didn't do the he didn't executive produce it. He had a role that was very pivotal to the success of that movie. But and so was the one dude who was running around, who passed away. What was the one brother's name? Because he was the one making the biggest fuss.
Tommy?
Who, Debo?
Tommy?
No. The brother who was so good. He was like, what was Chris Rock's Chris Tucker role in the movie Friday?
Smokey?
Yeah, he was smoking. Maybe he caught him taking a dookie on the side of the house. And he was
that little guy. That little.
yeah. And he was in I think a few Master P movies too. Those terrible movies that Master P put out. But listen,
Yes, yeah, he the one who had a
I
heart
forget the
attack.
brother's name. He ended up passing away. But like that's like categorically and contextually different than me putting out an album and then the label just screwing me out of all my royalties, my masters, and rights to all my music. And then that's different. So I totally agree with that as a musician.
But maybe
I'll also challenge then anyone that's watching this. Also look at a film called The Girl Can't Help It and a couple of other films that Black musicians had guest roles in that were they were pivotal to the plot and the contracts they signed and how much money they made versus the movie afterwards. So I'm also talking about movies too, but
I think that where Trisha's point is strongest is that we're going to use the same system to evaluate the deal, right? So like the example I'll use is that Marvel Films paid Chris Hemsworth, the guy who plays Thor, $85,000 to do the first Thor movie. Now, that movie was not a critical success, but it made enough money that there's a Thor 2 and a Thor 3. And he made $85,000. And the studio's position was that nobody knows who Chris Hemsworth is. Everybody knows who Thor is. That's a Viking god that's been around for thousands of years, but nobody knows who the actor is. So we can pay this person just to show up and potentially the film will be successful, but we're taking the risk. And so I guess to Trisha's point, when it comes to Black artists, and particularly in films, like Sony has went as far as to say we don't cast Black actors in a lot of our films because they don't do well overseas. And so then they can come to the negotiation table when they do have Black actors to say, well, we have to lowball you on this because we don't believe that the film is going to be successful overseas. And then if it is, then they stand to have larger profit margin than they would have. And I understand that point. I guess my question, Trisha, is like, what is the way that you would do it ethically? Because it, like I said, you're setting up to get taken advantage of if you say, well, I'll pay you some nebulous amount for work that you complete now, and then we'll wait and see how much I pay you later. What power do you have as the artist if I disagree with you and just decide not to pay you anything further? How would you set up a scheme that protects the person who took on the initial risk and the person who stands to basically pick up a larger margin of profit? I would like to know what that looks like.
I'm trying to think of the name of the movie, but I would probably advocate for a percentage of the net versus so like the standard rate plus a percentage of net, because if it makes money, great. If it doesn't, then hey, well, we didn't make any money, so you had your standard SAG fee or whatever. So a percentage of the net.
I guess so. My question to you is: are you saying that I have to? So now put yourself in the owner's chair. Are you saying that you would pay them the same rate that you would have paid them, like at the beginning, and then you'd also say, and there's points? I think that's what they call it.
Yes, points. That's it.
So you're saying you would give them their normal salary plus points.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it works. That's royalties.
Yeah.
Right. 50
but
cents.
Also doing that for films and.
Okay. Yeah, that's all worked out. Like,
yeah.
So from like, and I want to look at the other end of it too, because let's be clear. Two instances, like I have a couple different, businesses. I can't see myself like, if someone paid me to write their resume, and I charge them a fee, I charge them whatever amount, like $100, but then they end up getting a job that's like 6 figures. I can't see myself coming back and saying, man, to make this right, you owe me a part of your salary.
That's fair.
Or if I do mock interviews with them and I said, hey man, this is what you need to say. This is stuff that I've done. I understand what Trisha's saying, and I understand what you're saying, Bobby, and I understand how it shares some intersection of how we were done, back in the day by white people, by Jewish people, even by Black people like Barry Gordy. He messed over a lot of people. But I can't see myself. I don't know what that was. Someone.
Sound like a cat. Kitty.
That was a cat. You better go check on that. You might be a vet visit. Listen. Oh, okay. Cool. White cat's okay. All right.
Her name's Beyonce, so it's okay.
She's got a white cat, by the way. That is just so ironic. Anyway,
Name's Beyonce.
hey, she get home after a hard day battling white supremacy. I hate to be that cat.
I know.
Well, I can't talk. We got a white picking geese. It's a white dog.
After I agreed upon it, I couldn't see myself not only asking for money that, which, came because they made an investment in my skills and my service. I couldn't even see myself taking it either. You know what I'm saying? So I just like, I feel like it goes both ways. It's like, that's why, I wanted to put that up there. It's like, how do we avoid taking advantage of each other in this capitalist time? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, at some point we got to be like, I don't know. It kind of makes it seem like the amount of money or the differential in money between two people in our community defines and values the relationship. At some point, you're saying because you made more money off my labor, and I don't even think it's fair to be like, a person playing in a movie is the same as like chattel slavery, like someone like having Black people just do, unpaid labor. I just don't see. There shares some intersections, but I just can't see how it's like shares so much intersections that it's the same thing.
I do think the better comparison instead of chattel slavery is what happened right afterwards with the convict leasing and the payment, where the former slave would go to his master and say, "Oh, master, I want to stay here. I want to make watermelons," and then he would say, "Okay, I'll lend you whatever property you need to make 11 watermelons, but I get to sell 9 of them." And if the former slave made a 12th watermelon, they put him in jail. And that's the sort of conversation Trisha's having, is about making a deal and then exceeding the expectation on the deal and then being penalized for it. That's the comparison that you can make. I don't think it's a 1-to-1 at all, because some of these people are still getting, wealthier. Whereas in that system I was talking about right after slavery, those people were incarcerated for making an extra watermelon. And then the owner would come in and the former owner would come in and he would have the patch of watermelon that didn't exist there previously, and he'd go sell all 12 of them at the market. So in a way, I think Trisha is saying that the extra gross for these films is like the watermelon patch that's being taken over, that person didn't contribute to developing. I don't love that, but I understand it.
Thank you.
I do understand
No,
that.
I mean, it's definitely a good point. It's definitely a valid way to look at it. There's more than one way to look at it. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't want to be in a position where, here's the deal too. Let's look at time and investment, as a person whose intellectual property becomes capital, like myself. Malcolm Gladwell talks about 10,000 hours. Now, there's some things that I've done for 20,000 hours, and that's beyond 20,000 hours. And that's writing, that's rapping, that's putting on shows. And I just feel like at some point, I don't want to seem like that's unearned privilege. It's definitely earned privilege. The amount of hours that I've put into the work that I've done, I've made sacrifice, I've made investments, and there's nothing wrong with earned privilege at all. That's the reason why I have the privilege of not being in prison, because I have earned that privilege and that right, because I don't do criminal acts. And I don't want to be in a situation where I've earned this abundance amount of privilege, and then someone who hasn't, thinking that they're entitled because I've hired them, and they think that they have the same value and capital that I do when they don't even have nowhere near as much experience as me. I just don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I'm getting over on them if I'm like, man, and I would do what Precious did. I'd be like, well, let me hook you up with some other opportunities. But if I set the precedence of every time trying to fill a void, that especially that you're not even trying to go after, especially if I give you the opportunity, you know what I'm saying? Only giving you the opportunity because you asked for it, not because I think I'm hiring you or anything. You asked me for the opportunity. I gave you the opportunity, like to be in a grill party, something like that. It blows up. We had a contract. If I set the precedence of always filling that void, then I'm never ever going to be in the position to give other people the opportunity because I spent all my money trying to fill other people's voids where they need. That's why I like to grow leaders. I don't like to grow followers. I grow leaders. What is it going to take for you to start your own thing and stop asking me to give you the opportunity? And so that's why I was talking to Life Enrichment bookstore, and we started doing these storefront, grill party experiences. And we're like, I started thinking about the same thing, Trisha was saying, because people will be like, I'd be like, well, what is your what do you charge? Because slavery's over. I tell that to people all the time. What do you want to get paid? You know what I'm saying? If I can't afford it, I can't tell you how many people have not been in a grill party. I just can't afford it. I can't afford it. I can't afford it. And then at the same time, I'm talking to Life Enrichment bookstores, like, what's the most ethical way to do it? And I was like, man, don't exchange money. It just have to be a barter system. I think that would be dope. I don't know how many Black people in our community that would actually do it because we're so conditioned of exchanging, little pieces of green money with, deceased white men on it. How many people would come to an actual swap meet or a market, a vendor's market, and there's no exchange of money? You just bring what you think is a value to someone else and you're willing to trade it. I wonder, it will be a great social science experiment.
Just say when.
But I think though, like going towards a plan of action, I think you have power though. Like if you are that master, a lot of the artists in the industry in hip hop talk about how what they appreciate about Drake is that he will make them rich. All that has to happen is he has to do a feature for them, and they'll go from a artist right here, just entering, to immediately being elevated because they understand that his mere presence on the record makes it a success. And you have that same ability where maybe you can't afford to pay them the proceeds after the fact, if it's more successful than you anticipated, but maybe you have the opportunity to, like you said, build a leader and you participate in their project and you bring your following, your hundreds of people that like all your Facebook posts. Like, I think that's the thing that we need to do is actually reach, this sounds bad, but reach down and pull somebody up, as opposed to, trying to essentially give back our profits that we can use to empower other people later.
Yeah. So what's the deal? We going to this next topic?
Yeah. I think
why not? I think we can squeeze it in. Let's
do this real quick. Well, I don't want to diminish. We might have to do a part 2. What do you think about the man being acquitted of murder for killing a person from Tinder who posed as a woman to lure him into a date? Now, this is a situation that happened. I'm gonna be point of transparency. I do not know how to pronounce this brother's name, so I apologize for that. That's why I'm not giving. But he's a former football player. I think he went to Virginia State or U of V, and I guess I should give a little bit of characteristics for this brother. He's over 6 foot. I think he was like 6'2", 6'3", 205 pounds. So I guess he's well built. I'm just setting the stage for that. And he was on the Tinder site, and there was a person on the other side that had a profile that was posing as a woman. Push came to shove. Some time went by. They agreed to have a date. I guess the brother who was the former football player went over. The other person's like 153 pounds. I'm just reading, stuff that I read from one article that I read. I guess that the size differential, I think, played a part, at least in the testimony. this is also, and here's the problem with this in the beginning. I want to begin where I want to end. Like a dead person doesn't tell no lies or truth. So it's only one person that gets to tell this story, and that's the person who's still alive. And according to the
Correct.
person still alive who killed the other person, says that they were in self-defense because the other person allegedly said that let's have a date and let's do it in the dark. I don't know who does all that, but that's, even as a man, that's unsafe for me going to someone's house, you know, saying like they want to do stuff in the dark. And they agreed to oral sex. So I guess that was exchanging some messages and whatnot. So the brother goes over there for some oral sex, agrees to do it in the dark, gropes the other person, and finds out they have a penis and they've been lured into a situation with another man. I don't even think the other man was posing as a trans woman or anything. I just said they was a man, you know, identified as a man. They got into a fight. The brother who's still alive said the other person was, you know, going for a knife, or no, sorry, was going underneath the mattress to grab something, and then he proceeded to punch the other person 5 times and kick them, and they died. They did find a knife underneath the mattress, though. So I just wanted to, you know, because there's a lot of stuff that's coming out of this. There's a lot of political stances coming out of this. Um, my first initial reaction, without reading the details of it, because I had heard about this like maybe a year ago. I heard about this.
Yeah, it was last year.
Yeah, I you know, my first thing was like, oh man, that's, no one deserves to die. No one deserves to die for saying they're a woman when they're not. But then I think about the details of it, where they gets to fighting, and then people gets to punching, and then people starts to grab for stuff, and you're in a foreign place. Then it's like, hey man, I want to be the person that walks out of this place alive. I want to go home. You know, it's like, kind of got to kill you now. And it maybe didn't have anything to do with the fact that you posed as a woman. I don't know. Maybe it had more to do with, I didn't want to die. I don't know. What y'all think? It's a terrible, terrible situation to be in. So many things to unpack.
Sorry, Amber Alert was going off.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my brother was talking about this situation, and my brother said kind of what you say. He's like, you know what? I can see how somebody could get their ass whooped over something like that, but that shouldn't result into a death sentence. That what it should not have. And now that you said it and all, I said, okay, I'm hearing more pieces of the puzzle. And what made me want to talk about this topic, because I was looking at the comments, and they were talking about, yeah, he was justified in his killing because the man deceived him and this, that, and the third. And I couldn't help but wonder, if y'all find that justifiable for this man to kill this other woman because he portraying himself as claimed to be a woman, and he walked into a dark place that he never been to, and it seemed like he never met this person prior to coming to this place. Why I have a hard time believing women when we say that we begin deceived by men and we get caught up in these situations? What y'all say is, what the fuck you went over there in the first place? That's the first thing you'll say to us.
Well, he went over there with some oral sex.
Exactly. To a person that he apparently did not really know. Into a dark room.
Hold on. Wait. Time out. That's a little, I understand what you're saying there. That's one way to look at it. Let me, okay. So what I was about to put up there is, a person justified in taking another person's life for an attempted rape or sexual assault. Meaning, once he was like, no, I don't want to do this with you because you're a man and I don't get down with men. And the person still pursued, or the act was already going. Is a person justified in taking another person's life at an attempt at a sexual assault or rape. Now, I want y'all to really think about that, because that would set a precedence, you know what I'm saying, for a lot of situations.
Oh, shoot. Darn it.
Because that's a tough one. You know, why'd you take yourself over there? Because you wanted to have oral sex from a woman, or what you thought was a woman. But as soon as you said no, and then it becomes a sexual assault or attempted rape.
Yes.
Or are you justified in taking someone's life for trying to sexually assault you or rape you?
Yeah, you have the right to defend yourself. I don't think nobody is knocking that in that notion. It's just that I find it interesting that you justify, yeah, you have the right to defend yourself. And of course, he was reaching for his matches. Yeah, you don't know what somebody have underneath their mattress. It wasn't a firearm. It apparently was a knife. So, yeah, he probably would have done some damage. I'm not sure. Of course, apparently it was just two men getting at it. It's just that the point I'm just getting at is I just find it interesting. We have sympathy for these type of situations, but now when it's in reverse. It's just something I've been noticing a little trend of that. And I'm just something I've been noticing.
Let me ask you something real quick. So you think that I want to be clear. I understand what you're saying. I want Bobby and Trisha to tap in. Are you saying that there's no sympathy for a woman that goes over to a man's house and
yes. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
what you
saying.
doing over there?
Wait, just let me finish. Just let me finish real quick. Because I don't think y'all know what I'm about to say. And then the man doesn't stop when she says stop, and then she kills him. We're saying that collectively what you hear is that people have sympathy for the man that dies rather than taking the woman's side.
Yeah, I mean, even that guy that was gonna kill all those people up that the black woman ended up killing, there were people angry at her that why did you have to kill him?
That's crazy. Okay, that's new to me, because I'm like, if a woman goes over to a dude's house and he's making any kind of advances and that she feels, you know, threatened, and it comes out that he's dead, I'm like, oh well.
It depends.
Common sense would say that, just like in this instant, but in reverse, we all know when women do, there are women who do that. We tend to blame the victim in this case, especially if the victim is a woman. And this, it is crazy. That's why I said I find it so hypocritical.
And especially if the woman's a sex worker, especially because they have the right to say no too. And
they do.
But that's what we got. That's what we had to. That's why I say it's crazy, because I read Satoya Brown's book. You know what I mean? And that's just crazy. Like, here's a 40-year-old man with a 15-year-old, and he ends up dead. It's kind of like, I thought that was like kind of par for the course. Like, you rape my daughter, I'm probably going to kill you. Or you rape a woman, I'm probably going to kill you. Or she's justified in killing you. That's crazy.
Yes. Let a man, if a woman go over to a man's house and let's say 11 o'clock at night, so you know damn well he wants some ass when you come over there. Why you went over there anyway? Let's not act like those type of rhetorics are being said when a woman unfortunately gets caught up in those situations and unfortunately something turns left. Oh, absolutely. I personally don't do that type of stuff because I always think 20 steps ahead of my people. But the point is, it does happen. And it happens all the time. That's why I found the comment to be so hypocritical. I said, that's fine. You feel him justified. In this case, yes, technically he will, because he will be defending himself. But how come y'all ain't asking him the question the same you ask a woman? What you doing going inside an apartment and it's dark as hell? You never been there before.
Yeah.
The only place I step in that's a dark place is my own place, because I know where everything is. But even then, somebody could be sitting there waiting for me in a corner.
Well, you heard me say that in the beginning. In all honesty, you heard me say that in the beginning. I was like, this is kind of a sticky situation.
It is a sticky situation. I could take it another level. I'm gonna stop. Absolutely right.
If it had been a woman the same thing. She would have even been questioned as, oh, well, if it was oral sex, you could have got up and run if he was doing oral sex. They want to know specifically what was happening, and then will tell you what you could have done. So, but that's not happening in this case, because you could say, well, if he was receiving oral sex from her, then he could have like run out when he really. It's like, no,
Yeah,
they create all these things that you could have, should have, would have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let me be clear on what are we saying here. So since that happens a lot with women, when the roles are reversed, are we saying that we should just take that approach in this situation, like just to ask him why he was going over there? Like, what
not at all. I'm just saying, if you're going to justify him for defending himself because he was being apparently he was being ambushed. I call it an ambush. If he being ambushed because he's under the wrong impression of going over to this place and he's being attacked and he had the right to defend himself, then maybe you need to have the same sentiment with women. Unfortunately, get caught up in a situation and something does happen to her. And well, a lot of cases, sometimes a woman lose her life a lot of time. But the point is, if she happened to defend herself in that situation, why don't you give her the same sentiment? But this society tends to not do that because apparently us women are supposed to know goddamn better. But I think everybody should know better when it comes to their own safety.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me if I'm wrong, hell. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, you're definitely not wrong. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see it like that. I mean, I
was like, I read them comment. I was like, I would look through all the comments. I clean my glasses and all. I said, I know damn well y'all justify. Granted, yes, you were telling to defend himself, but I don't see nobody asking why he went over there, especially me and somebody online, because everybody talk about the dangers of online dating, especially a place like Tinder. I always hear some mess with Tinder, but I ain't seen like that.
I want to be clear real quick too. So it's not justified to ask that question and to educate and to remind people of the dangers of putting yourself in that situation. So at no time are you supposed to mention that. That's not a good idea.
I'm not understand. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you're asking.
So let me be clear. So you're saying that if it was a woman going to a man's house and it had the same resolution and the same outcome, that they wouldn't have gotten the same sympathy, right? Yeah. Right. That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, are we not supposed to say, okay, that wasn't right, blah, 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 what they did to you, but are we not supposed to educate people on how not to be victims?
Of course. I mean, that's kind of...
I just want to be clear that we are allowed to say that and not be blaming the victim. That's all. I want to make sure that it's okay for us to say, okay, that wasn't cool. You did the right thing. And after the point, like, what did you learn from that situation? When you go into a dark house, when you meet people on Tinder, I think that's really good advice for anybody across all genders.
Correct. But that type of advice is only given to women. It's not in reverse. That's what we're saying. They give it to us in a heartbeat because unfortunately despite us being when we are vulnerable, we are vulnerable, especially if it's a man. We are that's unfortunately that's just it is what it is. We always told to us, but I feel like when it comes to men don't feel like they can also be victims at the same time.
Yeah, they don't think
that's the problem. I think men don't think they can also be victims.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I agree with you when it comes to sexual assault. There's something interesting that happens with sexual assault. Like we have this cognitive dissonance, whatnot. But just growing up a man, you know what I'm saying, for 47 years, we do that to each other too. Cousin, why, especially during the 90s, man, why you going to that neighborhood with those colors on? You deserve to get your ass whooped. You know what I'm saying? Because you know that you wasn't supposed to be wearing those colors. Why you out there dealing drugs when you know what comes with the territory of dealing drugs? You know it comes with people trying to rob you. Why are you keeping certain, money in your house? You know what I'm saying? Why don't you put it in the bank? So I hear a lot of the similar blaming the victim, and it's a very patriarchal, it's a very blaming the victim, you know what I mean? Vantage point to look at things. So I do see that, but I want y'all to be clear. Growing up, man, I can keep going on and on and on and on. Why are you dressing like that? You know what I'm saying? If you don't want people to stalk you in the stores and think you shoplifting. You know what I'm saying? This is stuff that I've heard Black elders tell young Black people, you know what I'm saying, across genders. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like the same stuff that the slave master used to use as excuses and justification to put hands on us and beat us and brutalize us. It's the same thing that was inherited and conditioned for our elders as advice and as wisdom. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if like those things are going to address what Precious and Trisha are talking about. I think they're really just specifically getting at the idea that a woman who goes out to pursue sex with a person she doesn't have a pre-existing relationship with for a decade is her fault. Whatever happens next, that's what.
Yeah, that's why I started with the premise. There's a cognitive dissonance when it comes to sex and sexual act. I said that in the very beginning, but men go through it
in a different.
We definitely have male privilege. Like if I was in a room drinking with 5 different women, you know what I mean? Not a smart thing to do, but I'm not thinking if I get drunk, they're gonna rape me. And that's what I'll be telling, like, you know, dudes all the time. Like, you have that privilege. You know what I mean? You're probably not thinking about that. Just like it's, you know, late at night. You're probably not thinking about, hey, it's probably not a good idea for me to go on this jog by myself. But women have to think about that all the time because so many sexual assaults and rapes happen. Or, you know, it's okay for me to go to Africa by myself. That's male privilege. You know what I'm saying? Women have to think about a whole set of possible tragic outcomes from even just traveling alone.
Yep.
So I get it, but something happens, you know, for sure when it comes to, you know, sexual assault. And I think I know what happens, but that's a whole different episode.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my point on that. That's my point about it. Technically, you should be justified if somebody tried to do harm or rape you. Yeah, you have every right to defend yourself. I mean, I'm not sure. Well, I don't know. He brutally beat that guy. Like he really effed him up. He effed him up pretty bad. I don't know his attempt.
I think that's an understatement.
Yeah, it's understand what I'm saying. I read he really did some damage. So I'm not sure if his attempt was to kill or he just tried to get away.
It was more than just to get away from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really.
I'll go ahead. I'll do it. I think the issue is that you have the gender politics and the sexuality orientation. All those politics are out there. And so what we know about the facts of this case that make it problematic, especially, is that he's been to the apartment before and his teammates or people in his social circle are saying to him, you know, they're giving him the treatment. Like they're roasting his ass. They're saying, why are you messing with that dude? And it's not until those people engage him on that level that he returns to the apartment to confirm or deny this person's identity. So we have to deal with the cultural aspect of not allowing people to pursue who they want to pursue without there being some sort of negative or pejorative attached to that pursuit. If that's not there, there's a chance that he never investigates this at all. But because all parties understand how the pejoratives work around this and how the adjectives work around this pursuit, when he grabs the penis of the person that he thinks is a female, the female has to punch him, right? Because they don't know how he's going to react. But then in doing that, they create the same opportunity for the other person to punch them. And you might come to the conclusion that what killed this person is the social pressures around what we're allowed to do and what we're supposed to do and who you're supposed to like. If he grows up in a culture where we do not roast him, tell him he's gay or whatever, regardless of whether he whether we actually believe that's a gay act, which is a different episode. If we don't do that, then potentially he does not explore this further. Because the thing is, he got oral sex once and then returned. So,
oh, hold on. Yeah, you bringing it up. Hold on. We got to.
Yeah.
I didn't hear all this. I didn't hear all this.
I mean, that was not the first time
he
did
came back for
seconds. And that's important. That's important. And that's the reason why, from my perspective as like a district attorney, that's probably the reason they were willing to bring the case. Because like I've said in our private conversation, if you just look at the facts, it's two boys or two men in a fist fight in bed. Yeah, that's self-defense. That's open and shut, especially when somebody reaches for something. But when you add the context of him going to the apartment after being roasted by his teammates for going there in the first place, now we start looking at what was your true purpose in returning. And that's a good question. But like I said, we'll never know the truth of that. So we have to focus on what we know, which is that it's very possible that the culture is the reason this person is dead. And that's an important thing to put out there. But by the same token, I will just caution you on this. If you're going to make a comparison to somebody like a Centonia Brown, you have to understand that self-defense is something that's imminent. So, like, if you shoot somebody who's asleep, you're going to go to jail every time. It doesn't matter what you anticipate them doing when they wake up. They're asleep. So that's not a good self-defense. It's just not. It did not work for her. She was incarcerated for a while, and then there's public outcry. But that's not effective. So I'm saying that understand self-defense is imminent. So you need to have a threat right now. And that's the reason why I was saying, if you just look at this, it's two guys in a fist fight. So of course he's going to have that ability to defend himself. But the context here, I think, is what culturally we have to deal with.
Yeah.
So hold on. So I must have got the Cliff Note version of what happened, the abbreviated version. So what happened was they meet on Tinder. And he goes over there one time. He hooks up with the person, receives sex.
Yes.
Goes back to his cronies and his homies.
They roast him.
Hey, bro, you just now got oral from a dude.
And importantly, other dudes on the team had turned this person down because they were suspect.
Gotcha. Okay. And then so he goes back to the apartment and wants to fact check the gender or see if the person has a sexual organ or not, finds out that the person has a sexual organ, and then they start scrapping.
Yes, that's what happens.
That changes everything.
It does, but
that's what I said. That looked like premeditated, in my opinion. Because why would you go back? Look here, we would be treated with just saying, dude, what FaceTime the hell out of a woman FaceTime her damn picture. So you mean tell me you didn't get all that for you even went over there? You could have did that after you got roasted. Be like, hey, reveal yourself. Because I told my story of what I had to put somebody on blast when I knew they were fool, try to play Precious P. I had to put them on blast, but I didn't go to the place.
Right.
But that's why
I do that.
Right.
So that's why I say I look at that somewhat premeditated, because he went there and reached down to grab his penis, which he already violated his space. And when that happened, he swung out of reflex and boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Because even if the person he killed were biologically female, I mean, somebody just digging their hand down there, I'd have probably punched him too. I mean,
I'll probably jump back and be like, hey, what you doing?
Why are you putting your hand there? So it was, he didn't need to go over there to confirm.
He didn't need to go back.
I mean, what?
I don't know. It's hard because, like I said, I'll tell the truth. Like from personal experience, when I had a person who was pretending to be a female message me on Tinder with their female friend's picture, we were talking for a while, and every time we got to a point where there was about to be a meetup, there was, do you mind if I bring a friend? And the friend was always a male. And I always said, absolutely not. I'm not into whatever it is that you're getting at. But I had to remind this person, because one time they said they were coming over. I had to remind them, if you bring a male over to my house who's not invited in the middle of the night because you're texting me after a club or whatever, that person's getting their ass whooped. One of us is going to get hurt because you're not bringing someone to my house uninvited. You're not doing it. That's an ass whooping. Okay.
I agree.
Right, but that's the scenario, to the point of Eddie Pearson here. When you do this, you are creating a dangerous situation, because both parties don't know how the other person will react when the truth is uncovered. And you can't set people up for that. It's not safe. Like Trisha could say it's not safe for the transgender person, right?
This is a trans person, though.
Huh?
This isn't a trans person.
But I'm just saying it doesn't matter. I'm saying if it is a trans person or a person who's posing as anything, that person's not going to want to conceal, is going to want to conceal for their own safety, right? Mm-hmm. But at some point, if somebody does an investigation and they find out, are we waiting for the trans person who gets murdered disproportionately to wait to find out whether the reaction is going to be safe? Do we expect them to do that? I don't know if I expect them to do that, but just know this: if you're that trans person and you don't knock the other person out, now you're setting yourself up to potentially die. Like, that's this fact pattern repeated over and over. So deception is dangerous, and people need to realize that. Like, it's not a game.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well said. I want to know from a legal standpoint, Bobby, from your standpoint, if sex and rape is based on, sex, rape, and sexual assault, blah, 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 is based on consent. If he consented, I want this came out in the trial. Mm-hmm. If he consented to having sex with a woman or a person with a vagina, mm-hmm. and he had oral sex with a person with a penis, mm-hmm. there goes consent out the door.
No, that's not rape.
Okay.
I think I asked that question. I think
this question's come up already in a different context, but that's what you call rape by fraud, where you're going to come in and you're going to argue that I wouldn't have consented had I known. Right. And that's what we call an extreme minority rule. There's maybe, I think I sent it to Trisha.
You did.
She didn't believe me how clear this rule is.
Yeah.
There's like 50 states, right? And then territories. And out of 50, there's maybe 2 or 3 states where that's a rape.
Gotcha.
The rule is that you consent to the act, not the person.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Still messed up.
Yeah, it is messed up to get misled. And this is why I keep saying this. What us, I mean, granted, we ain't going to know. I don't know how many of us go to a place and a man turn out to be a woman. I'm not sure how many times that happens. But the point is, we do run into situations where men say they are a certain way, and it turned out they wasn't what they say they are. I agree with what Eddie is saying, and I'm not saying he's wrong, but God damn it, believe it when we say it. That's all I'm asking. Yeah. Believe it when we say. Now you know this shit does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So believe us when we say it.
Eddie said, come on, y'all, stop. Clearly, he didn't know that was a dude. If the person is under the guise of a woman and they're not, and you're misleading people in such a way they are seeking to have intercourse of any kind, you're playing a very dangerous game. When they do, when do they
get the blame?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are established. Yeah, we are playing a dangerous game when you are.
They die.
They die disproportionately. So what do you mean? When do they? This is the irony. The beginning of Pride Month.
End up losing their life. They
do end up losing their life. Complain murder. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, they normally don't get away. They normally do lose their life.
I think I was being a little facetious and being cynical. What I think Eddie is saying, when do they get blamed for their own murder? I think that's what he's saying.
Okay, but
you blame culture, who threw no punches. You blame culture. So
where do we go? Where do we go with this? Because okay, so it's their fault for putting themselves in the scenario, right? But if the person that kills them is not actually at threat of losing their own life, how is that a justified killing?
Right. No, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you.
You're
Especially
mad.
if he took himself back over there.
Yeah, he
Well,
shouldn't have
I'm
gone
not
over there.
getting into these facts, but I'm just saying, like what Eddie's saying is that the mere fact that you did the deception, it's really hard for me to separate Eddie's comment from the mere fact that you deceived means that the murder is justified. No, the murder is justified where there's a threat. You can't even start that conversation because then we get into every time someone's lied to, regardless of what the lie is, all lies are the same. So now every time someone's deceived, there's a legal justification for murder. No,
Right. It has to be a threat to your safety, not a threat to your ego and reputation.
I think Trisha made that point in the private conversation, in the private chat. We made that point.
That's a good point. But I had said in the beginning, even when I had abbreviated Cliff Notes stats, like this, not a reason for a person to die. But when someone starts fighting and then they start going for a knife, it escalated and it just becomes a really bad Coen Brothers movie scene.
But as a cisgender woman, if a man is putting his hand in to verify, that's also assault. And so that's sexual. Well, in the country I used to live in, that was considered sexual assault to touch or put your fingers in without permission. So for him to have done that, then Bobby, would I then be justified in harming him?
Yeah, I think we already answered that question. Yeah. We already asked that. I think if you went over there, you know what, maybe the plan of action for this, if you're going to go over there, don't be touching on people, just get verification and you have to deal with the resolution that you get.
Or maybe you should go on a date with these people before you go to their apartment, because I'm damn sure ain't going to your apartment.
He did. He went on one date and he went back. He did go on a date first. Sure did.
Yeah, but they didn't go to the apartment though.
Right. I hear y'all. Y'all misunderstanding. He went there. He went for the knife. Maybe he doesn't die if he doesn't lie and reaches for whatever during the fight, because the fight was going to happen. Well, then you're proving Precious' point. If you knew the fight was going to happen, then
exactly. You're proving my point. He went over there to whoop his ass. Now, did he intend to kill him? I don't know, but he damn sure wanted to do something to him.
And then it was manslaughter then. But he got acquitted. He got acquitted.
Yeah, he got acquitted
because dead people tell no lies and no truth. So
yeah,
there you go. And that's not the plan of action, though. That's no. Please don't go there with me.
Plan of action: kill all the witnesses. Okay, good.
Kill all the witnesses.
Works for the mafia.
Oh my gosh.
Real quick, let's do it because Bobby got to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we're a minute and 32. We're 32 minutes over. We usually don't go this long. Thank you for everyone who's stayed. I think the plan of action for the last topic we just now talked about is get to know the person before you're going out on dates with people. And when you're meeting up with them and stuff like that, like, you should always have a plan. You should always have a plan of action when you're going out with someone. You know what I mean? And I think that, man, we forget that privilege that we have. Like when we ask women certain things, oh, I can come pick you up. Like that can be really offensive. Or can I get your number or something like that? If you're on some messenger apps and stuff like that, like we forget how offensive that is, because a lot of people, specifically women, have a plan, like to protect themselves because they've heard stories of they've had really traumatic things happen to them. So I would say that just because you're not a woman, you know what I'm saying, you should always have a plan, you know what I'm saying, of how you're going to diagnose the situation and whatnot. And I would say for the other situation with Monique and whatnot, I would say pay attention to how you respond to people so you don't escalate the situation. That would be my plan of action too, man. It's like, just pick your battles wisely, you know what I'm saying, and see how you can de-escalate the situation rather than, escalating. If you already know someone's at an 8 or a 9, you know what I'm saying, calling you out your name, try to get it back down to a 2 or a 3, you know what I'm saying, or a 1, you know what I'm saying, because you got to ask yourself, what is it worth it getting into a situation with a person that just wants to escalate the problem more? What y'all think? Who wants to go next?
Oh, you looking at me? Okay. I think my plan of action is the same for both situations. That as Black people, because we don't have a lot of power in other spaces, we take affronts to our ego and reputation from 0 to 100 quickly, and that we need to learn, develop, and support each other in different ways to not take everything to 100 when we feel that we're being disrespected either by our reputation. Like, I feel like this guy with the reputation of being, because of the homophobia or transphobia of his teammates, that he had to do this, as well as with Monique and DL, both of their egos. So we maybe can try to help one another take things down a notch and realize that not everything is an attack on our ego.
Well done. Well done. What you think, Precious?
And the good thing to say about the ego thing is good. That's a good word to use for that particular situation, because it's something that I had to say to some of my co-workers. When you come to work, check your ego at the door, because this ain't about your ego. This is about business. Because if you bring your ego on to the job, you may actually get your feelings hurt when the intention was never to hurt you. It's just how we do things here. So with that being said, I still love Monique. I still support her. And I still got love for D.L. Hughley too. I still say I think that was just an issue with the promoter. I think Monique should get with her daddy and discuss that contract, whatever going on with that contract, and so does DL. Because right now they're just looking like auntie and uncle arguing after barbecue. That's basically what they're looking like. That's basically what they're looking like to me. I love both. I wish them the best. I hope Monique does.
And who made
Monique
this dry ass macaroni and cheese? Anyway.
In terms of this case we just talked about, this I hope. Well, it's probably not going to happen, but I hope society, especially for the males, understand that even men can be victims of deception and sexual assault on the dating scene. So if you see how this incident can go left, how these things occur, you should put in perspective what women go through on a day-to-day basis. So if you're willing to side with the man for what he did, and that's perfectly fine, you and your right, then maybe you need to be more open-minded when it's in reverse and it's the woman who's in the vulnerable position or in the vulnerable part of the situation, instead of questioning why she put herself in the first place. Because if you're going to play that game, two can play that game as well. And that's all I'm saying. Both gender need to be careful when dating, especially online dating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good
Rangers.
point.
And that's all I got.
Bobby Bob, what you got?
I'm not really interested in Monique and DL. They got rich Negro problems. I'm not in their rich Negro leagues. So I'll let them have their rich Black people problems. Because they both still rich afterwards. So there's that. And then for the case, I think the first thing I would just say is even if you're a person that doesn't agree with the direction we're going in PC politics and progressive politics around gender and orientation, the least that you can do, though, is not be so toxic about it that we incentivize deception. As the kids say, please God, no more cap. That's where I'm at with the deception, because the cap is dangerous, and people who feel that they must do that to protect themselves are actually putting themselves in the center of the danger zone moving forward. So I would just say that it's a two-part solution. The first is to come to a place culturally where we don't incentivize people to hide themselves to such an extent that when they're found out, it's an explosive situation. And then when we reach that point, then stop concealing your actual identity, because there won't be a need to. But I do think that first step is probably the most important one. And so that's something that on a personal level, I would even have to say, like, I would have to work on that, because I would probably 22-year-old me would definitely been roasting the hell out of that guy. I'm not gonna cap. Like I would have roasted the hell out of him at 22. Like, man, he was over there getting that from a dude. Like that would have came out of my mouth.
He was 19. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm not gonna say that I would have been better than that because I wouldn't have. But now that we see what happens as a result of it, we have to be better than that. And so that's where I go with it.
Yeah. All right, y'all. It's been great. C Talk. I don't know if we got after C Talk or not.
Yeah.
We do.
Wanna do it? Yeah, we can do it. It's only
Yeah,
like
we can do
55
it.
time, so we got 45 minutes to get it in.
Yeah.
I love all y'all. Appreciate this. Another great episode. I think we did a really good job of educating people and whatnot, and educating ourselves. So I love y'all. We'll see you next time. C Talks out. Peace.